Well, hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today for this fabulous webinar we've got today. We're very excited. Thank you for joining Sales Hacker. Couple of sort of housekeeping things before we roll straight into things. One is just a reminder that please ask questions throughout the webinar, throughout the session. We want to make this very interactive. We don't want to bore people and cause death by PowerPoint. We do want this to be a fun educational experience for everyone. Additionally, we also want to make sure that you know about our upcoming event in New York City, which is the Sales Machine that's hosted by Sales Hacker and Salesforce. And that's going to be in June of this year, the week of the 13th and 14th. Please be sure to check that out and register if you haven't already gone. So what I'd like to go ahead and do is move on to the important part of the day and make some introductions. If we could advance the slide so people can see who our folks are, that'd be great. Seem to be having a little bit of a technical difficulty getting that slide up. Awesome, thank you. So just real quick, so we can do this efficiently, is we've got Katie Rao, who's actually the CEO and co-founder of Aviso. We have Jeff Serlin, VP of Global Sales Operations at Marketo. We have David Hong, VP of Sales at Lookout Mobile Security, and Bill Dolby, who's the Senior Director of Sales Operations at RingCentral. So we've got some very heavy hitters, people with a ridiculous amount of awesome experience, and we're super excited to have them share with us how to find those actionable insights in your pipeline. That's what we all want. We all want to go better, faster, and for lack of a better word, we'd like to do it cheaper. So let's see how we can manage and learn more about our pipeline with these folks. Again, my name is Richard Harris from Sales Hacker, and without any further ado, we're going to turn this over to Kevin, who's going to be sort of moderating the whole panel today. So one last thing, KB, before you started, is folks, you will see the questions and answers on the screen. We'll also be talking about these in greater detail. We decided to create this from an auditory and visual representation because we understand that people learn by either seeing or hearing, and in some cases, both. So we wanted to give everybody the opportunity to learn that's best suited for them. So KB, you can take it away.
Thank you, Richard. Welcome all, and it's really a privilege for me to host this extremely distinguished panel of sales operations leaders to talk about, and share their insights on accelerating pipelines. So I'm going to, get out of the way and jump right in with these questions. I'll read these questions out, as Richard mentioned. So, obviously, I think pipeline acceleration in any B2B business starts with a forecast, and I think, we can't understate what is the importance of creating an unbiased forecast, and how do you go about creating it? And I will open it up to the team, panelists here, to starting with Bill.
Sure. Thanks, KB. And as a sales operations leader, one of the things that I feared the most in the past was being in a forecast meeting where my VP of sales that I support says, hey, we're going to do this number. And then as the meeting breaks up, the president grabs him by the shoulder and says, hey, Bill, what do you really think we're going to do? That creates a potential for bias and risk. And it was very uncomfortable years ago when that was the case. But thanks to various analytical tools like Aviso, we've developed a number of different metrics. And we actually, at RingCentral, present to our senior execs 6 different forecasts every week, 2 of which come from our sales leaders, our VPs of sales, and our sales management team gives us 2 human forecasts. But then we have 4 analytical forecasts that come from our finance department and from our pipeline and from Aviso that give a range of forecasts that give senior management confidence of a range of where we're going to finish. And we can talk about each one and the trending of each one, and which is more accurate, and gives the execs confidence of where we are, and then they can take action if they need to get us where we need to be by the end of the quarter.
That's perfect. Hey, David, how do you guys go about it at Lookout?
Yeah, thanks, KB. This is David Hong from Lookout. I definitely can resonate with, relate to Bill's comment about either the CFO or another exec kind of turning to the sales ops person in a room and then kind of wink, hey, what's really the number? One of the challenges that I had at Lookout was that not only do I have, we have a senior VP of field operations, but I actually have 5 VPs of sales that control 5 theaters globally. So you can imagine, the challenge there dealing with the 5 VPs and having to normalize and defining terms and whatnot. And the 3 points on the slide here: clarity, scalability, predictability has kind of been my 3 pillars, if you will, around sales operations and specifically forecasting, such that there is clarity of definitions that no matter where you are in the world, an opportunity in the order stage reflects all of the characteristics of an order and not qualified or validation, et cetera. And scalability comes into play when in my world of sales ops, you having to manage 5 theaters, somebody is up at every time of the hour. So as I wake up, EMEA is about to, shut down. And as I go to sleep, APAC is just waking up. And being able to have a tool that is able to be, truly non-biased to time zones or whatnot, it really helps with the scalability. And obviously the tool itself provides that predictability around when forecasts get rolled up, and there isn't any question around, well, should that be in this category or that category?
That makes sense. I know, Bill, you have you lead a public company, forecasts are important. Jeff, you're in the same situation that getting a reliable forecast is absolutely imperative for a public company. You want to share how you guys go about it at Marketo?
Yeah, sure. Hi, Katie. We go about it in a very similar manner that both Bill and David mentioned. I still do get a visit from finance after we submit our weekly forecast on Friday. And it's not to kind of ask me wink, wink what it is, but they go through their analysis, projecting it into really what the guidance we are giving to Wall Street. And we go through that together and understand how those relate and how those affect each other. And we kind of validate all of this together. So the forecast that we get rolling all the way up to my boss, the worldwide VP of sales that goes over to finance, is so important to everything that we do here at Marketo because it could force us to make any number of decisions of what we might want to pull back from, lead into, where we see the wind at our back and, where we have some headwinds as well, which allows us to make some really good decisions on how to correct for those things. We ultimately look at many of the same metrics that most of you guys do. The bottoms-up deal-by-deal roadmap. We look at a bunch of top-down KPIs, coverage ratios, et cetera, do some analysis against that. We look at it against historical trends. How are we pacing? What's our linear year seasonality we're seeing? What do we expect, given what we've seen before? And we also, of course, put into it a lot of the intuition or judgment coming up from reps and managers and segment leaders. The challenging work for the sales operations group is then to triangulate all of these inputs, see where they converge, see where they confirm each other, and to come out with this unbiased view of the forecast. And that's a hard thing to do. We have multiple theaters as well. We have businesses all over the world. So the scalability and the clarity of doing that really helps us come from the single solution that we use, which is Aviso. Common definition methodologies, common cadences, common views of these world or of these multiple worlds as we roll them up into that one single forecast. It also helps us to be more predictable because we're using, the predictive and analytics that Aviso gives us as an additional data point to view how that links up with the intuition, the judgment that we see, as well as a much better basis than me cranking away in a spreadsheet of trying to relate this and triangulate it to historical trends and what I might see. It's a tough job, but if you don't do the things up top, the clarity and common definitions and standards, a single process, you don't have the scalability, which means moving out of spreadsheets and getting into a system. And if you don't have the predictability of a good standard cadence, communication, training, enablement, policy, etc., then you're not going to have a forecast that you can believe all that much into. So that's how we go about doing this on a weekly basis.
Perfect. You know,
so we've got a couple of questions already, so if everybody could give me 1 second. There's two. So the first question is, you know, you talked a lot about sort of this intuition piece, right, which is you know, it happens on every sales team, right, particularly when you've got sales reps in multiple theaters. Can you give some examples of a couple of definitions that you really try to have the reps focus on to try and reduce that sort of intuition piece, right? Because we all know that sales reps, you know, they're great at closing. They're not necessarily so great at updating the CRM. So we know that sort of garbage in, garbage out, and you can't make them overly click a bunch of stuff in your CRM either. So are there a couple of unique definitions that you guys have each seen within your own theaters that help you define your forecast a little bit better coming from that ground up approach?
Yeah, this is Jeff. I can kind of give you one example. Just the definition of the forecast categories. What does commit, which we call firm here at Marketo, what does that really mean? And if you can define those in the same sort of manner that you do with sales stage, exit, and entrance criteria, then I think it's a better forecast. For example, if I were to ask a rep, what are the major obstacles or hurdles that are preventing this from being closed? If they cannot describe any, then it's a commit. So I don't allow people to put it in upside or best case if they can't articulate what those major hurdles are. So good definitions that you can actually ask questions against and inspect against, which don't leave it necessarily to put into one of the forecast categories, but make it clearly obvious which category it goes into helps as well. So treat forecast category definitionally like you would sales stages, and that's one of the things that helps us get them into the right buckets.
Yeah, this is David. You know, one thing I might be able to kind of offer up is you know, whatever tool it is, whatever process it is, you know, I always look at workflow, whether it's at the rep level, the manager, or even at the VP level. So even forecast calls, I think about how should the meeting go about, right? And one key thing that we use here at Lookout is we use a combination of a kind of a matrix dashboard. So it's a Google slide, 3x2 matrix out. Key topics would be like, you know, what's your forecast? What's your performance changes? What are your challenges, et cetera, et cetera. And, you know, we use kind of the red, yellow, green traffic light for each of those vectors. In addition to that, we then finish out that slide. We have the VP of sales then switch over to Salesforce and literally show their Aviso. And by doing so, it forces them to not only, you know, use the tool, but at the same time, they're able to talk through it. And a lot of our VPs have actually, you know, adopted it so well that they're able to not only drill down to their manager level, but down to their reps level and even down to the opportunity level. So, you know, thinking about consistency of definitions is very important, and that's kind of, you know, mother and apple pie. But also, you know, what's the kind of agenda for the forecast? So how are you kind of moving data through or analysis and so forth is something that's helped us.
Perfect. You know, in fact, one of the things I think we talk about forecast, right? I think, but the next issue is what do you do, right? Forecast is so important because it drives decisions. And I think the next question gets into that, you know, what kind of decisions do you make based on your pipeline that are coming from you know, inspection on the forecast itself?
Yeah, so this is Bill. You know, we have a very good view due to Aviso of where we're going to finish during the quarter, and we can tell from multiple views if we have enough pipeline or not, and we can break that down to the segment and sales team and sales rep level. If a rep doesn't have enough leads or a team or a segment, you know, we go to our Marketo system and grab some more leads. as one action. We may go get some leads that aren't fully nurtured yet, but let's call them anyway, and we'll grab them and go after them. Or we may go back to Marketo and pull back some leads that we previously did that might deserve another shot. Let's call them again. Maybe we didn't catch the guy on the right day. So we'll do that. So one action we try and do is go find some more leads to pull into the pipeline. But another action is, since we have visibility to future quarters very quickly, we can call customers that have a deal that's in next quarter, and we've often offered them incentives to move the deal into the current quarter. And we incent the reps to go after that as well. So because we have such fast access to our pipeline by quarter and visibility to it, we can go after those deals and try and bring them into the quarter to increase the pipe for the current quarter.
Perfect. That makes sense, David, from where you see things in the pipeline and at Lookout. Sure.
I think it depends on where your company is in its evolution, right? Are you a Series A, B, trying to get product market fit, or are you post Series D, F, and now you're just trying to scale? A lot of companies also might be a Series F with a Series B new product line, and they're trying to generate new demand for their product. So I'm not quick to go outside of sales to say, hey, we need better leads or more leads. I want to make sure our house is in order in the sense that deals are correctly categorized, that the theater heads actually can narrate their pipeline deals, that they're very intimate with it. You can glean a lot from a forecast call, whether it's complete BS or hey, they've got something else pending that they're not forecasting correctly. And again, going back to tools, I think Aviso helps kind of level set a lot of those kind of nuances and able to truly ask validating questions about a particular deal, or about, hey, you're committing this, but your pipeline is only showing a smaller amount. So it's definitely a kind of a tool that helps normalize that for us.
Great. Jeff, you want to add anything at how you do it at from a decision-making perspective, right? How do you do things at Marketo?
Sure. Here at Marketo, we actually don't have a sales pipeline and a demand gen pipeline. We just call it the revenue pipeline or revenue funnel, which is lead all the way to close one. And what we do every week is we execute actually 2 forecast calls. One is for the closed business, how are we doing against our plan? But the other one is really for pipeline. And both of these include predominantly the same folks, and it includes both sales and marketing, and we collectively and jointly own this entire revenue funnel. What this helps us to do is we all bring our metrics and our tools and our point of view, and we collectively understand where we have risk in either our current quarter, month, or in the future, where there might be softness in our funnel, where we might be showing good results. And depending on what conclusions we collectively make, we have a long list of plays, both sales and marketing plays that we can execute. I guess, for example, if we have good pipeline coverage and we know we don't necessarily need more pipeline for the current quarter, but we need to close in and accelerate that, we have both sales and marketing plays that we can run. Obviously, the sales play is some win rooms focusing on targeting key accounts, revalidating and making sure we have good close plans. But marketing also has activities that they can drive through our own use of Marketo that help to go to people in a sales cycle, which we call accelerator campaigns, which helps to hopefully push them forward or push them over a hump, whether it could be competitive or value or anything else, to also help to close those faster. Or, for example, as Bill mentioned, if we need to go forward and pull some things into the quarter, we also have a different set of plays that we can run in both sales and marketing to try to pull some accounts later or deals later in the year into the current month or quarter as well. So our forecast calls are not just reading the news, they're very, very action and execution oriented collectively with both sales and marketing.
Hey everybody, I've got another question from the audience, if you don't mind. and this probably could turn into a whole webinar, so we'll try to get the answers to be brief, but I think it is really appropriate as you look at measuring your pipeline and again, focusing on that accuracy, right? And the question is sort of twofold, is how do you determine the right number of opportunities for each rep to work? And granted, that could have a lot of answers depending on ASP and sales cycle and enterprise versus SMB and all those kinds of things. But so how do you determine what's the right number of opportunities for a rep to work, while also sort of maintaining this integrity to keep the your average sales price and your win rate high, so that you're not always sort of having to go into next quarter or the quarter after and try and incentivize people. Has anybody, and you guys are all sort of with these bigger organizations where you've got bigger sales teams, have you figured out that, gosh, a rep should only handle more than 50 opportunities or 20, or what kind of feedback could you guys give on that? And that may come up later in the conversation, so if someone thinks that's going to come up later, we can table the answer too.
Yeah, this is Bill. We actually monitor this very, very closely through our sales ROI metrics. We know that reps do have a capacity, and if you give them too many leads, then they skim the cream and downgrade the rest because they don't have time. Of course, if you don't give them enough leads, then they're not going to be productive. They may waste time on deals that really aren't that qualified. So finding that, ideal amount of pipeline and number of deals for a rep is very difficult, and it's different for each of our 6 main sales segments as well. So we have a lot of analytics around sales ROI that help us determine where we are, and based on the demand that we're able to generate and or the target that we have to hit, then we scale the number of reps according to that average number of deals per segment that we need to make our number. So that is a very important question, and one we spend a lot of time fine-tuning each quarter as we reevaluate our sales ROI by segment.
Would you be willing to share, an example? Granted that everybody listening should not just follow this because he said so, but I think people always love to hear, with the size of your deals or those kinds of things, oh, this is probably the average capacity we think based on what we do. I think people just love to hear that kind of stuff.
Well, that's a tough one. One of you other guys want to grab that? How you answer that?
Yeah, this is David.
I can tell you what
we be able to take. Sorry, this is David.
Go ahead.
Maybe I can give you kind of color on how I would look at it. It really starts with your planning phase, right? So whether your fiscal year is calendar or whatnot, figuring out working backwards off of the worldwide number or even a rep's quota. What are your kind of deal size buckets, right? Whether it's and we're predominantly focused on enterprise, not so much SMB in the market. So our deal size can range from north of 2,000 license deals to 5, 10. It just goes up to 50 to 100, et cetera. And how many of those deals would you need to get to your number, right? Is kind of the planning exercise that we go for our worldwide theaters. And eventually we actually push that down to the rep level to at least, give them a template of, hey, this is how you should end your quarter or your period. And reflecting on their pipeline and their deals, how does that add up? Your question of how much can a rep handle? Well, they should be able to handle to hit their quota, right? So whether they hit it with one whale deal or a bunch of little deals, at the end of the day, a win is a win. So there's no magic formula, right? There's no magic ratio. It's I think someone mentioned earlier. It depends. What your ASPs are, what your sales cycles look like, and how you guys go to market, et cetera, kind of all plays into it.
Yeah, and I think it's a very dynamic environment, because while the past indicates gives you a certain measure of productivity, that you are improving things, and you want to drive improved performance, so you got to take that into account as what the business needs in figuring this out. So I think it is a tough question, and how do you keep staying on top of it? So that is a great question, but I want to switch gears to, I think most of us are almost addicted to our spreadsheets, and while they're very flexible and give us, enormous ability to customize, but you also end up spending a lot of time managing them. And so how do you guys reduce this time spent in spreadsheets?
Yeah, well, we don't like spreadsheets at RingCentral, and so we developed, with Aviso's help, a number of different views of our pipeline that we can access with simple clicks. So as our very inquisitive executive team says, well, that information looks interesting, but let's click on this, or can I see it by this way, or can I look at it last quarter at the same period? They're constantly asking questions, and so Aviso helped us to tune their views to give us pipeline by stage, by forecast category, by quarter, by weighted pipe. I can see it by segment, by channel, by sales team. I can see it by quarter, so I can go back to last quarter, same time, and compare the pipe on that day. That would be February 26th or 7th. What did our pipeline look like then compared to today? And it's very easy for us to click through these different views, and that helps us to avoid going back to the data we pulled out of Spreadsheet, out of Salesforce, and running another pivot table and trying to put it back together into a pretty slide. So we've basically escaped from spreadsheet hell, at least on our pipeline, because of the views that we get in our Aviso Cloud Analytics tool.
Yeah, this is David. If I could just offer my thoughts. Aviso is great for kind of reporting the state, what's being committed, et cetera. And maybe this is kind of a new area for Aviso to get in is playing the what if scenarios, right? And we use a data warehouse and a BI tool to do the slicing and dicing, to play the what if scenarios. And we have a no Excel or Google spreadsheet tracking rule here at Lookout. So anytime I see anything of that, or you catch notion that somebody's using a spreadsheet, they're definitely going to get a call from me.
This is Jeff. What David just said is what we do as well. I don't think we'll ever fully get out of using spreadsheets, but we have a small set of well-designed, standard, consistent spreadsheets that we do use in some cases. And we don't allow everyone to have their own, and we don't allow people to create their own. And so when people do that and send a something into us or use it as a QBI or anything else, and we see it, we just do what we can to work it out of the system and make it get onto our standards, whether it's a tool like Aviso, or whether it's one of these kind of thoughtfully built Excel spreadsheets that mashes data in from, and sometimes we do it with our Workday system as well, because we look at rep tenure and other things in terms of productivity. So I think it's really driving a standard if you are using them, and not letting everybody design and build their own, and SOX has to be, I think, the control point for that. You also need to deploy, when you think about deploying tools, they have to be more than just replicating an Excel in a view online. They should be deployed in a way that goes above and beyond. Aviso provides us predictive and some other elements related to how people can view their pipeline. So it's not just replicating a spreadsheet in a system. It's actually adding more value. And to the extent that you can always do that, make people want to use it as opposed to have to use it, you can start to wean folks off of spreadsheets and the reliance on them as well.
Perfect. Hey, and I think we're looking at the questions. I think I'm going to skip a question and actually for the next one, which is about metrics, right? Sales operations, sales is, people talk about it being, sales being coin operated, and I use, I don't like that word. I prefer, that sales is metrics driven. So you guys want to talk about, how you decide on the key metrics and which to focus on, and how do you go about getting them? Because I think that is truly the key. to being a data-driven organization and drive the performance you guys seek to drive?
Sure, this is David. I can take a crack at that. Key metrics, obviously, it's hand in hand with marketing. So we have a regular meetings to set up what our KPIs are, and we focus on 5 and 6 key KPIs and nothing more. Set up bands for these KPIs to ensure that we've got acceptable bands for each of the KPIs. And if it does go out of band, then we drill down, and we meet on a monthly basis to review these KPIs. As far as having, again, it kind of goes back to what is your business. And if your business is transactional, then you're dealing with a lot of volume. But Lookout, again, is much of a less transactional business, and we have potential whale deals that swing a forecast positively. It might be a great quarter, it might be a not so great quarter. So having to look at the metrics and make sure that we've got line of sight to how the deal could swing the forecast is very important.
So this is Jeff, KV. In the fall of each year, we go through a planning process, and it starts with our E-staff, and they come out of this with a set of company priorities. We then take this, and again, my counterpart, our GVP of Demand Gen and Marketing, then take these, and we try to then formulate the set of key marketing, sales, and pipeline metrics that align to those company priorities. The metrics we're doing, we're not creating more. There's a big library of metrics, or inventing more, that are out there. The trick for us is going into the new year is which ones are we going to focus on that align to those priorities for the company for the next year. We then go through a process where we actually have a monthly metrics, company-wide metrics, not just sales and marketing, review with the E-staff, and these become part of that package. And because we're reviewing these every month, because we thought about them coming into the year, and then make sure that we set up the data and the systems and the tools to capture them and report against them, we have really good dialogue about them through the course of the year. So it's really about, I think, aligning that set of metrics to what the company priorities are, which, to David's point, constantly change. If it's more cross-sell one year, then we'll create more metrics that relate to that. And we also differentiate between our theaters and segments. Our newest business in Japan has a different set of metrics than our more mature business in North America, and we have some variations, whether it's an SMB or enterprise business as well. So it's really about, I think, alignment, which drives you, alignment to the company goals, which drives you to that set of metrics that you want to measure each year, and those should certainly be refreshed every year as those priorities change or as your company evolves.
So as a follow-up to that, what are the next steps? You go about defining the key metrics, and you go about getting them. Are there other next steps you do in terms of once you find what these metrics are?
Well, KV, for us, this is Bill. For us, the key metric is we're a fast-growing business, but which parts of our business are growing the fastest, and where do we invest additional headcount in the coming weeks and quarters? So that's a very, very key metric for us that we keep an eye on, is our sales growth by segment, by channel, et cetera. ROI levels, is a part of that. Secondly, we look at if there's a problem emerging that is important, that we need to go address it. We'll often go back, and sometimes we'll take action by producing a sales incentive for a period of time to get reps to go back and look at that again. Because sometimes, they have so many things to focus on, they forget about something. And then we might go back and say, well, hey, we'll give you a spiff if you go back and do this and get this area of performance back to where we want it to be. So part of it is investment discussions, and part of it is compensation-based discussions to make sure we have the right focus on the right parts of the business that lead to the highest growth and profitability.
Great. Hey, I think talking about some of the spiffs and promotions that you do, again, we live in a dynamic environment. So I think this touches on some of the things we talked about, about marketing spend and adjustments, pulling deals in. So I think how do you go about actually uncovering the actionable insights, on a systematic way to drive the business forward?
Well, for us,
I can take a crack at that.
Okay, go ahead, David.
Go ahead, Bill. The Salesforce dashboards is obviously good to a certain extent. As we all know, it's not the best dashboard kind of tool out there. But using what you have, focusing the dashboard such that it renders top. Humans look at the top left as the most important metrics, and then all the way down. So working with your sales managers and sales leadership to ensure that you've got the right metrics laid out in a way that it's intuitive. And again, going back to the workflow, are reps using their dashboards on a regular basis? I mean, it's great in prior lives to go up and down the aisles of the inside sales group's floor and seeing reps kind of refresh their dashboard, which means it's working for them, right? It's actionable. They get value out of it. Using the Aviso dashboards is very helpful in the sense of, where am I in terms of last week's forecast to where, Aviso's kind of data science tells me where I might be. If you want to go and spend the extra dollars, look at dashboard tools like Domo or similar tools to then help aggregate a lot of different types of data sources such that you get a holistic view of your business.
Yeah, we use the Aviso dashboard weekly because our reps tend to have a lot of deals in their pipe, and it's easy for them to forget about some of them. And the Aviso dashboard scores the deals every week and will downgrade a deal if there's been no action on that deal in the period of time that it's measuring. And so that gives, and there's a view that, top deals that are downgraded, a manager can talk to a rep and say, hey, what about this deal? What about this deal? And then they can drill into that deal to find out what's really going on. But, at the end of the day, a lot of it really comes down to, hey, I just forgot about that deal. Some of our mass market territories have 40, 50, 60 deals in the pipe, and they just can't, remember all of them. They become sort of event-driven as actions are happening, and it's nice to have a tool to be able to quickly see which deals may have been forgotten or neglected, and then that stimulates an action to go call that customer and find out where they are and try and get it moving again.
So we've got a very specific question from the audience around this, and I promise the audience I've done my research to make sure this isn't a loaded question to turn into a product pitch. But the question really says, how do you value the accuracy of Aviso versus something else in the CRM? And I think the question is it really that accurate compared to what you get out of a CRM, and why do you find it so much more dynamic? So I'd love to get answers from people that are using it, and hopefully it doesn't turn into a product pitch, because I promise that's not where this question's coming from.
Yeah.
This is Scott. I can start with that.
Okay.
Aviso and these tools fundamentally run off of what's in Salesforce. So it pulls in the close dates, it pulls in the stage changes, it pulls in the amounts, even the forecast category that reps have. So it still comes down to the hygiene in our CRM system. If that data is accurate, tools such as Aviso will be accurate. If they're not, they will be less accurate. One of the ways or things that Aviso also helps with, or these tools of evaluating that accuracy, is giving you the insights that you would not get otherwise. In other words, you can easily mouse over any deal in there and see that it's been pushed 5 times. And now you understand why it's assigning a risk score, and then you simply ask and go look at the history, and you find out that it's constantly pushed. So you don't have any, space that it's going to close next week, which validates what you're seeing in the system. So it does use the same data. So it will draw for that sort of accuracy. The insights it gives you, then validating and inspecting those, helps you, firm up that belief and faith in what it's telling you with its algorithms, or any tool that you use is giving you better insights and accuracy compared to where you are at this point in time.
Yeah, for us at RingCentral, the accuracy question is critical for us, and we find a range of accuracy. Let me explain. At the company level or the high channel level, our direct business, our service provider business, our VAR business, it's like within 1% every quarter of predicting where we're going to end up. It's extremely accurate. You take it down to a sales manager level, it's usually within 5 to 7% accurate of the original forecast for the quarter and where they finish up. You take it down to a rep level, and now you have a lot more variability. It can be from, a range. We try and keep it inside 10, 12% range. But, a rep can bring in a really big deal and totally blow their number out, and that's a good thing. That doesn't mean Aviso was inaccurate. It means that rep got better and got more active and may have closed a big deal. So, again, at the high level where we're reporting to the execs, Aviso is incredibly accurate. You get down to a manager and rep level, there's a wider band of accuracy based on, as Jeff was mentioning, the accuracy and hygiene of the data that the rep is managing.
Hey, to bring up an interesting point, in fact, one of the questions here is, while reps may bring in, a big deal that changes the number and removes the accuracy, reps tend to fall in love with deals as well. And so the question is how, I'll read it out. Reps fall in love with deals and the information they have. How do you systematically make sure they're not falling in love with the wrong deals and wasting their time and effort?
Yeah, well, this comes up frequently for us where a rep is saying, this deal is going to close, and yet Aviso's forecast says it's not, or vice versa. And, that raises a question. Whenever there's a gap like that, it should drive a question where the manager asks the rep, tell me more about this deal. Based on the activities and the actions you've taken in Salesforce, Aviso's predicting this deal is not going to close in this quarter. Why do you think it is? And that's good. That's a conversation you want to drive. And sometimes it means the rep needs to back down their forecast. Other times they need to raise it because, Aviso's predicting it's going to come in.
Got it. So I think having richer conversations is a critical part of and being able to triangulate from independent sources so that way you can avoid this problem of the rep falling in love with the wrong deal or even a manager, right?
Yeah, this is David. If I could just, offer some comments here. Forecasting, we all know it's there's an art to it and there's a science to it, right? And I think tools like Salesforce and Aviso helps on the science portion where it's binary, and the art is it's kind of in your, I don't know to this extent, but it's in your blood or to sense whether or not a deal or forecast is truly real. And that's, I think, over time and experience, depending on where you are and the evolution of the company and the product, you get a sense for it, right? And it goes back to what is the clarity of the definitions, right? Is it truly a qualified deal? Is it truly going to close its period? Where has it met all the criteria to advance? Is kind of my thoughts on that.
Yeah, and I think it all comes down to the combination of art and science. Forecasting, you're right, David, is and blending the two together certainly I think makes for more efficient, more productive, and more reliable a path to making the number. So I think the next question just is an elaboration of that, which is, what are the challenges you face in creating these forecasts and how do you overcome them? I think listening from you guys, what are the real world challenges would be helpful for our audience. Yeah, Jeff, you want to take a shot at that? Yeah, go for it, Dave.
Oh, sure. Some of the challenges that we have and are facing, three key things would be one, managing rogue reps, right, who are using kind of non-standard forecasting methods in parallel, right? We mentioned about the dreadful spreadsheet. you're not going to get 100% compliance, right? I mean, that's just, there's no question about it. There are kind of the old school reps that probably do it on a yellow legal pad or maybe in Excel. Just trying to bring those rogue reps into the fold is definitely an ongoing challenge. Two, not clearly reflecting the deal attributes in our forecast, where a rep may think it's going to come in, it's not, or vice versa. It's a prospect that the rep has a great relationship with and has literally promised a PO, but it hasn't met all the criteria to advance, right? And third, driving consistency in the sales process, right, across geo, across business, and cultural factors, right? If you're dealing with a worldwide component, a deal may not look the same in EMEA versus APAC, or even one of our verticals, the Fed space. So those are some of the kind of ongoing challenges that we're always facing.
Yeah, and KB, this is Jeff. The biggest challenge I've had to deal with since I joined Marketo is managing our company's evolution and growth, and the need to have to scale all of our processes and systems and tools into that. We have several distinct sales motions, again, very large and growing SMB, very large and growing enterprise. We have some mature theaters and some new ones that we're investing in. We spend as much time separating a forecast and talking about new customer, new logo acquisition versus upsell and cross-sell within the install base. So we have to manage a lot of that sort of complexity, which is a challenge. But I think going back to David's point, when you have layers of management and you have hundreds of reps all over the world, you have multiple theaters, governance is really the key. And that is definition, that is documentation, that is standardization, that is getting everyone to talk the same language, that is not allowing people to create their own or have rogue reps or rogue managers do something different. So helping to drive that governance, I think really helps to mitigate a lot of the challenges that you have and have the entire company talking the same language, executing the same processes, getting to standard and consistent forecasts. You have to do it in context, though, of understanding different sales motions and allow there to be differences and nuances where you do need them, but still within that overriding framework of a consistent governance driven by really executive leadership in sales and sales ops.
Okay.
Yeah,
go ahead, Bill.
So just at RingCentral, we have a couple different angles here. In our mass market business where there's so many leads and opportunities and closes, again, we look at the sales ROI at the team and rep level and just try to see if people are in the mainstream. And if a rep is having too low of a lead conversion rate, then we talk to them about it, or a opportunity close rate. We feel like in this segment, these are the norms and you're off the norm, and that drives a conversation to try and keep the metrics working. And eventually that leads sometimes to reps leaving the business because they can't keep up with the productivity of other reps in that segment. At the higher levels, you've got longer deals that have sales cycles of 6 to 9 months, and conversations are happening regularly on those deals. That's a very different business to manage. And, we feel having top, sales leaders who can keep an eye on those deals and keep them moving in the right direction is critical to our future and our success. And again, giving them visibility of data through various tools, enables them to be productive as they drill into their pipe. And of course, that helps them create a realistic forecast when they have as much data science and data access as we give them.
You've talked about giving information to the reps and making, bringing data science and so on. I think the big part of driving sales performance is the coaching that managers do. So we'd love to hear from you guys about how do you use insights from the data science to coach, how do managers use them to coach the reps to success? You want to talk about that? That would be great. Jeff, you want to?
Sure. I think this is a very, very important thing. It's, again, not just showing information and reading the news, but it's using it, to arrive at better outcomes. One of the things that we do a lot here, and actually I do personally, is teach sales reps and managers how to be data-driven, how to use the data, how to interpret things, how to use that to better inspect and how to inspect these deals. So that's the first thing you really need to do, is teach people how to integrate this into their daily and weekly activities so that they can become users of this data to get to better outcomes. And of course, part of that is showing them the benefit that they'll get from this, whether it's higher ASPs, better win rates, getting closer to the number, et cetera. And once you teach them how to do this and they start integrating it into their cadences and they're inspecting the right deals at the right time and asking better questions, they will very clearly see the benefits. And they many times come back and ask for more. They want more layers of this onion peeled back of, now how do I use this other cool thing that you guys are providing me in there? So it is just a lot of traditional, evangelism and education and hand-holding and coaching and helping folks integrate this into an actual part of what they do. And then they just do it because they know that it's beneficial and they know that they're getting better outcomes and they know that they're going to be more successful.
As David, I'll just add a quick tidbit here. The Aviso forecast column on our dashboard is actually a great soundbite, even at the worldwide forecast calls or even down to the theater calls, because all too often the Aviso forecast is typically higher than what they're committing, and it's a great kind of conversation starter. Just to kind of level set, hey, you're committing this or you're at this percentage, but the Aviso forecast is telling us that you're actually going to be either higher or lower, depending on the case. So it's a great kind of soundbite conversation that I've actually seen used at the worldwide level and even down to the theater levels and down to the rep level.
Yeah, and for us at RingCentral, I think just having fast access to data allows conversations to be productive based on the data that's in front of them. Maybe the manager needs to talk to the rep about moving the sales stage forward, or even paying attention to a deal that hasn't been touched in some time. We look at the committed deals that a rep has in a particular month, and we also have a field called Next Step that we created, and Aviso put it on our dashboard. So a manager can say, well, gosh, sales rep, you've committed this deal, but you don't have a next step. What is going to be the next step on this deal? And that drives action. As Jeff mentioned, and we also have number of pushes captured. Again, you might be looking at a deal that's committed in the month, but the data says this deal's already moved 4 or 5 times. That generates the question, well, what makes you think it's going to close this time if it's pushed 4 or 5 times already? That generates a good conversation. So, having fast access to the data drives good questions by the manager to the rep just about the facts of the data. It's a fact-oriented coaching session that's driven because the information is so easily available and they don't have to go run reports to try and find something. It's just right there in their face. So we find that gives managers insights that drive fact-oriented conversations, which drives the reps to keep their pipeline accurate because they know it's going to be in full view of the manager in next week's one-on-one.
Yeah, I know, Bill, you've shared with me, some of these conversations that the managers are using to motivate the reps. Are they falling behind? And if so, what can they do to catch up? And also, if they're ahead, to motivate them, saying, hey, keep going, do what you're doing because you're doing well, and the data science is telling you that you're going to hit your accelerators and you're going to be able to, go on a vacation or whatever. So I think these are the conversations that, obviously are powerful in driving better performance and using data to drive better performance.
Yeah.
I think, I think we have time. Maybe Richard, how are we doing on time? Do we have time for one last question?
I think we do have time for one last question. I'm trying to see if there's anything new that's come in. Hold on one second. There is not. Yeah, there's a couple. There's a new question. There's one. How does someone evaluate the cost of a forecasting tool? I think that's a great question, right? Whether it's Aviso or, God forbid, another one that's mentioned on this webinar. But how do you really value that, right? And is it an ROI function? Is it a predictability function? What have you guys all seen, or how did you all sort of maybe determine that?
I could maybe take a pass at that. This is David. For me, it's about pain threshold, and everyone in sales ops can probably relate to the levels of pain throughout the sales process, and whether it's new rep onboarding programs that you need to put together, comp, and so forth. So for us, having the sales teams that we have, the challenges of a very decentralized geo theaters, normalizing definitions. Salesforce's forecast module, as you know, is not very robust, and there isn't too much that's coming out that I know of that's going to elevate it even further. So the ROI is about so I always make sure that it's budgeted first and foremost, but that might not be the case for kind of emerging startups. But the level of pain that it reduces for a sales ops professional is tremendous. And moreover, is there value to not only sales leaders and sales reps? I think it's a big factor. How do you quantify that to the finance guy? That's definitely challenging. I don't necessarily have a silver bullet, but it's really the laundry list of value. The value prop that it provides you is really what I will use to support purchase of such a tool.
I can, maybe I'm not the right person to answer this question, but I can share, what some of our customers have used to justify the investment. Obviously there is value in predictability and reliability, and so there is a ROI based on that. But I think the other value is that driving better win rates and improved shortened sales cycles through the use of better forecasting, better data-driven analytics is, I think, the other benefit of it that's been used by some of our customers to justify the spend, because it just saves, it helps they're able to quantify the amount of time in getting, in forecasting and using the time for focusing on the right deals and so on. I don't know if you guys want to add to that.
Yeah, KV, this is Bill. There's obvious productivity improvements that we get because it's just faster to do things. There are things that we just can't do in Salesforce without a tool like Aviso, a cloud analytics tool, that we just would never get to information without a tool like that. But you remember that, a MasterCard commercial where they share 2 or 3 different things, and then the last one, it says priceless. Remember that ad campaign?
Yep.
For us, Aviso gives us a predictive forecast at the beginning of the quarter. On the first day of the quarter, we know by segment, by channel, by sales team, by sales rep, whether they're going to make their number or not based on the data and the history in the past. Based on the past, it predicts the future. Now, Aviso doesn't know what our quotas are going to be, right? But it predicts a number, and if our target is higher than the number Aviso is predicting, and that's frequent because our executives like the number to go up, we can look at that and say, wow, on April 1st, Aviso said we're going to be 97% of our target. We don't want to be 97%, but now we have 89 days to change history. We are not a victim of our forecast. We have 89 days to go change history by doing things differently, analyzing the business, generating some more demand, improving win rates, whatever it is, we can analyze that, and then we finish up at 101%. Well, that doesn't make the Aviso forecast at the beginning of the quarter inaccurate. It means Aviso was priceless to us in identifying we had to take action and where in order for us to make the number. And again, that insight is really priceless and justifies the tool in our minds. But don't raise our price next time, KB, we get into contract negotiation, all right?
Priceless. I'll remember that, Bill. But I think that's I think that also answers partially, this other question that came up, right? Whether it's at that giving you the early warnings that you have 89 days to make the appropriate investments and, course corrections. I think one of the questions is, are there other examples? And I think we talked about this, about the conversations that drive when there is a discrepancy between a forecasted score, say, by Aviso versus by the manager or the rep. If any of you want to elaborate on some examples here, I think that would be helpful to the audience.
This is David. I think KB, I think it really depends on kind of the stage that the company is in, right? So if you're on a more stable kind of run rates and you've got high volume transactions, that's where I think Aviso is very powerful from that perspective. But if you're in an emerging market or a new startup, you don't have a lot of data in your CRM tool, right? Activity records, changes of stages, etc. But I think the key takeaway here is the more you use it, it will be beneficial for you down the road. And we see that with kind of the where reps forecasting and where the Aviso forecast says that they're going to land. We can literally see it getting a lot better, if you will, as it learns our business, learns our tracking the metrics and whatnot on our back end.
All right. I think the conversations to both what Bob mentioned and other examples of saying why is is there a data issue or are you just falling in love with the deal? I think those are the kinds of examples. But I think we have one last question. It's all about making the number. So I think the audience would love to hear about how you use your pipeline to make sure you can arrive at your final quarter number. As anybody wants to take a look at that, I think Bill, you already touched on it in so many different ways, but maybe you want to elaborate a little bit more.
Who is that addressed to, KB? Sorry.
To you. How do you use your pipeline to arrive at your final quarter number?
Yeah, so an element that's become extremely valuable for us is the view of the weighted pipe by segment for us. So yeah, you might have a 3 or 4 to 1 coverage of your total pipe in the future quarters, but what is the pipeline that we really have for this quarter? And what is the stage weight for that quarter? And then what is the coverage ratio that gives us? And for our mass market territories, we actually have a coverage ratio of less than 1, but that's okay because they're bringing deals in every day that, new calls, new leads. They're not managing a big pipeline. For our up market, it's more like a 2 to 1 ratio we want to see. But we can see by segment and then again down to the sales team and the sales rep, do you have enough pipeline to cover your number this quarter? And if not, we got to take some action. And we not only do that, for this quarter, but we actually compare it to last quarter. So we pull last quarter's weighted pipe on the same day in the quarter and compare it to this quarter. And is it bigger? Is it smaller by segment? Which segments are growing? Which segments are shrinking? That gives us incredible insight on a weekly basis to where we need to focus attention to make sure a particular segment's going to make their number. And again, just having that visibility at a click is just priceless, because we can get stuff done, we can analyze very fast at a very detailed level, and that gives us confidence of where we are, and then we can take action if we need to in a certain area to make up a gap.
Great. Anybody else about comments about how you use the pipeline to arrive at your final quarter number, to make your numbers?
Yeah, KV, this is Jeff. Very similar to what Bill does is you really look at historical coverages, conversions from first day or first week pipeline. You've got to look at the differences between an SMB or volume-based business and large enterprise, and then the trends against that. And that really helps us to understand very early whether we think we have enough pipeline, whether you use a weighted pipeline or pipeline coverage, or just look at historical conversions to get us to our number. Again, triangulate that with all the other metrics we see if ASPs are increasing or win rates are increasing, then you might feel a little more comfortable if it's lower, et cetera. So again, it's really the earliest access you can get to the data, the better that you can compare it against historical, and the more that you can utilize predictive type of algorithms to help guide you to where we think, given this point in time and what we see it's going to end up. And then obviously all of the comments and intuition from the field of how they feel about, their pipeline and the deals they have in front of them as well.
Yeah, I would just add, these are great points. As I mentioned before, outside of your kind of forecast categories, what happens is the what if scenarios, right? So each theater would then, so we've got categories of pipeline, upside, and commit. And I recall one forecast call where he said, well, what's the real best case, right? And all too often we play these kind of what if scenarios and put this kind of added layer of forecast, and it definitely comes outside of the boundaries of what's been defined with the tools and the stage definitions, et cetera. And that's definitely a challenge. That's going to always happen, and that's where you get the rogue reps that are using spreadsheets to then forecast. And again, just being aware that there is a standard, everyone understands it, there's a common language, and so forth is essentially the drum that sales ops needs to beat.
Great. I think we can, we brought a number of different topics. I think we are pretty much out of time unless there's any other comments, Richard.
No, I haven't seen any other questions at this point, but I really want to thank certainly all the panelists for providing some extra time and insight, and also to the attendees for asking some outstanding questions. I think these are fantastic, and it certainly makes the webinar a little bit more engaging and exciting, and I know it keeps the panelists on their toes a little bit too, which I also like. So, so thank you all, everybody, for coming. We really, really appreciate it. And again, if you're going to be in the New York City area in June, please feel free to come by and see Sales Machine, put on by Sales Hacker and Salesforce. And we look forward to seeing you on the next webinar. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. We'll be there at New York too, so look forward to it. And thanks again to a fantastic panelists.
Awesome.
Okay, thanks everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.